Artificial intelligence is fast becoming the bad boy of tech. It's going to take half our jobs. It's going to spread disinformation. In fact, it's going to end civilization as we know it, apparently. Enter Frederick Werner. He's the International Telecommunication Union's Chief of Strategy and Operations for AI for Good. What's AI for Good, I hear you ask? Luckily, here's Fred to explain.
Yeah, so AI for Good was built on the premise that AI can advance many of the sustainable development goals and targets. So anything from healthcare to climate change to education to gender equity or more high-tech solutions like autonomous driving and smart cities. I think the use cases are undoubtedly there. Of course, we have to be mindful of the unintended consequences of AI. So top of mind, of course, is job loss due to automation, but other things like bias and fairness in data sets, ethics and safety when it comes to machines making decisions for us. Also things like privacy, transparency, accountability, and then maybe very importantly for the UN and the ITU is the digital divide. Is AI going to help bring that together or actually further deepen it? So basically the goal of AI for Good, simply put, is to identify practical applications of AI to advance the sustainable development goals and figure out how to scale those solutions for global impact. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we can't do it alone. No one can. So we have virtually the entire UN system of 40 UN agencies as partners of AI for Good. And actually, it's organized by ITU, where I work. But also the experts would say themselves that AI is too important to leave to the experts themselves. So great efforts have been made to bring industry, academia, civil society, member states, different NGOs, but also artists, athletes, the creatives, young, old, intergenerational. Our thinking is that we need to bring as many different voices to the table so that we can have a proper inclusive dialogue on how AI might benefit humanity.
Constant question of AI governance. What are the challenges there, you think, and how is AI for Good responding to those, well, as I say, challenges?
I think when it comes to governance, we know what the problems are. That's quite easy. It's how do we handle bias? How do we make AI ethical? How do we make it safe? How do we make it transparent? How do we make it accountable? How do we make it sustainable? How do we make it inclusive? So the problems are well known. And then we also kind of know what kind of regulation is desirable. We want agile regulation, agile governance. I think it's quite similar to standardization, where you have that sweet spot where if you standardize too early, you stifle innovation, and if you do it too late, you might encourage some kind of scenario that's not desirable or some kind of...
Or you've missed the boat.
Yeah, lock in, and then you have the negative consequences. So having that kind of agile, innovative approach to governance or policy or regulation is very important, but also very important to that, and that's again maybe not a natural reflex for all, but definitely for the UN and AI for Good is that it's inclusive. So really making sure that all countries are there. Great efforts have been made to bring developing countries to the table, different regions of the world, but also making it multi-stakeholders. So really having industry involved, academia, NGOs, civil society, our governments, and back to that thing of saying we can't just leave it to a handful of people, whether it be industry alone or government alone or different groups.
But how important is consistency as well? You can identify the problems and say we need to make sure it's inclusive. But in terms of consistency of approach, there could be different answers to the same problems depending on the sphere of influence you're in, whether it's Europe or America or China. How important is there global coordination at looking at how to tackle those problems?
Yeah, it's interesting. So at yesterday's panel, we talked about that very issue, and I think it was one of the panelists said at his last count that there was over 700 guidelines on AI policy, governance, or how to measure different indicators and what have you. But also through that, there was quite a lot of consensus. I mean, of course, there's different maybe philosophies on how to do it, whether if you're in the East or West or Europe, I mean, in the U.S. it's sort of bottom-up type free market approach. Maybe in the East it's more top-down. In Europe it's more consumer protection oriented, kind of B2B environment. So you do have those differences in philosophy, but the commonalities, there's more in common than there is different. If you look at all of these guidelines, if you will, I mean, no one wants unethical AI. No one wants data sets that are making bad decisions. No one wants autonomous cars that are unsafe. So that there is a lot of consensus. So I think there's more in common than there is different, and a lot of guidelines exist. A lot of them are good. I think the trick is, as you said, they've been developed in silos, sometimes by big companies, sometimes by think tanks or by institutions or by countries. I think at our last count, there's maybe about 100 or so member states that have some kind of national AI strategy or policy. The trick is, as you said, bringing all of this in a coordinated way where the commonalities are brought together, and also making it actionable.